game. I kind of thought going in that JJ Redick would save that moment for a real game, right? Like at home. And look, it'll still be meaningful because the exhibition season doesn't count for anything. And when they finally do step on the floor in a regular season game, it'll be the first time father and son step on the floor. But I was a little bit surprised to see the start of that second quarter, to see JJ Redick put them both out there. Were you?
I was really torn and on the fence. Part of me thought that they wanted to save the moment because the Lakers like to, make the most of attention. It's one of their Hollywood ways of doing things. Of wait until they're at crypto.com, to your point, wait for a regular season game where the moment means a lot more. But JJ Redick, stressed that he wasn't going to try to do anything gimmicky. It's going to be within the flow of the game. Now, before the game, he left it open-ended whether he was going to do it or not. But Bronny shared afterwards that JJ gave him and LeBron a heads up that we're going to play the second quarter and go from there. So part of me thinks that even if we might see this moment before Bronny goes down to the G League for most of the season, that this is a way to kind of get most of it out of the way, that, any consequence of playing them together because of Bronny's learning curve with adapting to the NBA would be mitigated because it's in a preseason game.
So do you think that's the future for Bronny, playing most of this next season in the G League? Because what we saw for the first couple of exhibition games was not good. And look, they are exhibition games. He did just turn 20 years old. He is coming off a calendar year that was traumatic, to say the least, with the heart issue that he had last summer, to ramping up to play in these games for USC, to going through the draft process. He does belong, I think, in the G League full time, because the player I saw for the first couple of games, he's got a long way to go, man. Played 13 minutes in that game Sunday night. No points, was a minus 16 overall. Wasn't that much better in the opener. Only had that buck at the end of the game against Minnesota. I'm still wondering what Bronny James is right now, because he's clearly not a point guard yet. He's not comfortable with the ball in his hands in those situations. He's not a shooter. He does have some defensive skills, and JJ's brought that up a couple of times. It's something that scouts talk about when talking about the pluses of Bronny James, but he's still... there's a lot of work to be done if he's going to turn into an NBA player. And I know you posted about how people are telling you that there is the potential for him to be a long-term rotation player.
Let me clarify this part here. Okay. So,
please do.
Well, to answer your part about, is he going to spend most of the time in the G League? Yes. I mean, as we saw in Summer League, in preseason game, his shot needs a lot of work. His ball handling needs a lot of work. I mean, I think it was very telling, literally, first play of the game against Minnesota, turnover. Now, the plus side that the Lakers will talk about, what JJ Redick will talk about, is how he reacted there, where his defense is good, his effort's there, good attitude. As soon as he turned the ball over, he raced down to get a block. But I think in telling fashion, he still didn't retrieve the ball because Minnesota was able to get a putback. So You're looking at where like his short-term lane could be. It's going to be more defensively. Now, I know that you had some reaction. There was some reaction elsewhere about what I was saying on Fox Sports Radio Friday night, that one GM told me there is a pathway for him to be a role player long-term. It was someone to be on a 15-man roster, not part of regular season rotation, 5 through 9 player off the bench. And the point that he was making,
but role player implies part of the rotation, right? Like, if I don't consider, I'm trying to think of an example, but I don't consider the 12th to 15th man a role player, right? Like, I think they're just there. They're practice filler is what they are. Like, role player implies you're good enough to be in somebody's top 8. And there's a long way to go to even think about Bronny in those terms.
Well, I think this is where we got mixed in some semantics, because the GM, he was saying role player as part of a regular season roster. And so his point was that when you're evaluating guys at the end of the rotation, look, in the NBA, you have to be fit to play in the NBA, but a lot of value that they're having with these players is, are they good practice guys? Their work ethic's good. They won't complain. To Bronny's credit, he hasn't shown any sense of entitlement especially because of his connection with
not
his
at
dad.
all.
But to what your point is and to what I'm saying, he doesn't have a defined skill set. There is, I think, some pathway that he could develop into having a defined skill set, but it's going to take a lot of time, and most of it's going to start in the G League.
Yeah, and he's got to be a point guard. Like, I hear all these Davion Mitchell comparisons, and okay, but like there's one Davion Mitchell. Most of the guys that are 6'1", 6'2", with that frame don't wind up playing NBA basketball. If you're that frame, you've got to be a playmaker. And watching some of his minutes, like he was bringing the ball up for stretches. He was trying to get the team into the offense. He's got to get more comfortable with that. If he's not comfortable doing that, he's not going to last long in today's NBA. I do think over the years, as he gets a little bit older, naturally stronger, he is going to become a better and better defensive player. But if you don't have a defined offensive skill set, then you're not going to last long in the NBA, regardless of who you are and what kind of connection that you have. But I think it is good that, like, he needs to be in the G League. He needs to be in the weight room. He needs to be working with specific coaches on specific skills with no pressure whatsoever. That's the G League. That's playing for, what do they even call the Laker G League team? I don't even know.
South Bay Lakers.
South Bay Lakers. That's right. But they play. Yeah, they only play. They play in the UCLA practice facility. So I don't know what they are. But he needs to be playing for that team and playing extended minutes and just learning on the fly, not worrying about the results, just worrying about the process, to borrow a favorite NBA phrase. So hopefully that's the case for Bronny. Hopefully he's not in that Laker locker room too often. He doesn't need that pressure. He needs to be playing basketball and playing lengthy minutes and learning NBA skills. Let's talk about the Lakers, though, as a whole. They lost their first two exhibition games. Who cares? Like, by the end of these games, you're looking at back end of the bench guys that are playing. The Lakers are clearly focused on becoming a better three-point shooting team. That's obviously a priority for them. They were bottom third in the NBA in three-point attempts last season. JJ Redick has made a big production out of getting better with the three. The corner three, Mark, seems to be what they're targeting a lot. Like when I watch these first two exhibition games, a lot of dribble drive, a lot of corner threes, good looks at times. Sometimes they get a little off kilter. I saw one sequence in the first quarter with LeBron when he went to the basket. He thought Austin Reeves was going to be standing in the far corner. He wasn't there. There was some interaction between the two of them. But they want more corner threes. I get that. The problem is, like, sometimes it's felt like some of these guys are just chucking threes for the sake of chucking threes, right? Like D'Angelo Russell did that a lot in the first game. Like he forced several three-point shots. Those aren't good shots. Those aren't the shots that the Lakers are going to make them a successful team. So you've been around the Lakers all throughout training camp, first couple of games. What is JJ Redick's philosophy on this? Beyond just shooting threes, how does this team improve from the team they were last year?
Yeah, well, starting with the three-point shot, I mean, obviously, it's going to be evaluated in how many attempts. And to your point, ranking bottom third of the league, they're 27th last season with about 31 attempts. When you look at the Suns game, they had 40. But one of the things that JJ Redick stressed was it's not about hitting a specific number, which he hasn't shared, at least publicly. It's about better ball movement, getting quality looks. And so you mentioned D'Angelo Russell. He can be a good three-point shooter, but it depends how it doesn't come within the context of the offense. I remember one shot in particular against Phoenix that you referenced, pull up. He didn't really have balance. He was just chucking it. He thought he was doing a heat check.
He did it against Minnesota a couple of times too. Like he just was pulling up with 18 seconds left on the shot clock. That is not the kind of three-point attempt that's going to win you games.
Yeah, so I think generally he wants the increased threes to be a product of a lot of good ball movement, a lot better spacing. D'Angelo can be a part of that. Same thing with Austin Reeves, a little bit more with Rui Hachimura, even Anthony Davis. Even though JJ Redick's talking about Anthony Davis shooting threes, I think it's not going to be one of these things that all of a sudden he's a stretch five. It's more of just increasing some of the attempts, relatively speaking, because he doesn't usually shoot a lot of threes.
Took three in that game, in his first game. Took three and made the first one.
There are some driving kicks that were LeBron's looking for him there. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that he's talking about having LeBron do that. And I think part of that is also preserving his usage rate because LeBron, he's going to be 40 December 30th. He's in his 22nd season. He's very good at driving to the basket, but you're getting a lot of, contact as a result of that. So I think that is part of the thinking there. And then I think the other part is the fact that Gabe Vincent, he's fully healthy. He expects that there's not going to be any other lingering issues after he had his surgery with his knee last season. There's reason to think that because he played 68 games the previous 2 seasons in Miami. He's a pretty good 3-point shooter, but the other thing is he's known as a really good perimeter defender, and that can do 2 things: shield some of the weaknesses that D'Angelo and Austin Reeves have defensively, but also allow them to really tap into what they do offensively. But look, Chris, when we're talking about the Lakers, what their ceiling is, it starts and ends with, can LeBron James and Anthony Davis keep this sustained good run of health and play from last season, Team USA, and also improving from within with their existing roster. And there's a pathway to do that because of better health. JJ's, I think even with his inexperience, signs that he can make some good in-game adjustments. But what does that leave? I think a competitive playoff team that is either going through the first round, likely as a play-in, and that's it.
I'll need to see a little more than a couple of games to be drinking the JJ Kool-Aid there, Mark. I got to tell you, I'm like that was, he seems fine. Like my first takeaway from, watching the first quarter, first half of the first 2 games is that there is more of an emphasis on that ball movement. There is more of an emphasis on player movement, right? Like, especially in that Minnesota game, I thought there was a lot of movement for a lot of guys out there on the floor. It was something you didn't see a lot of last year with the Lakers. But if you go to the second game, when you have LeBron out there, there's a little bit less movement. He's more ball dominant. Same thing with AD out there on the floor. You're running your offense through these guys. So it'll be interesting to see if he can blend those 2 things together to make a more diverse offense, a more fluid offense that they're going to need to be successful. Look, they are bullish on Gabe Vincent. I think they're right to be. Gabe Vincent is going to be an asset for them off the bench. 2-way player, just 2 years removed from playing in the finals with Miami. They got virtually nothing from him last year. That'll be a bounce. I think Jared Vanderbilt, they're counting on as well. Whenever he comes back, that'll give them a good bounce. Look, after the first game, I was bullish on Dalton Knecht. I was watching him play. I'm like, wow, the fluidity, the shot, the offense. Then you see game 2 when he can't hit the side of a barn, right? He's 1 for 7 from 3-point range. I think he finished -19, -20 or something overall in that game. So he's definitely going to be a work in progress, especially defensively, because he's going to have to prove he can stay out there on the floor. I just think they to me, they can't be better than, they're not going to be better than what they were last year. I don't see any market improvements that takes them from like a 48 win team to a 54, 55 win team. Because even if you get a bounce from Vincent and from Vanderbilt, like, can you count on the same kind of consistency from LeBron and AD? They were great last year. Like, they were healthy for most of the season. They were all NBA players. Like, can you expect that again? That might be asking a lot with LeBron approaching 40 and Anthony Davis, even though he pushed aside the injury issues from last year, he's still someone with a history of them. So I watched these first 2 games. I'm like, look, they're going to be good, but I still look at them somewhere in that 7 to 10 range in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and I think whether you're looking through this through a concerned lens of glasses or the Lakers, purple and gold tinted glasses, I think that the end result is the same, that their ceiling, barring, a major move that they make before the trade deadline, is playing tournament first round and making it competitive, and then that's it. I don't
even know what the move would be, Mark. Yeah. And I feel the same way, and we're not going to get into this today, but I feel the same way about the Warriors, the same way about the Clippers. Some of these like veteran, star-laden teams that are not built like the modern teams, like that haven't been together over a long period of time and grown up. Like the Warriors have, but they're just on the older side. And, I don't know what you can get from Kuminga and from Moody, but that's a conversation for another day. I just don't know if there's a midseason deal that makes the Lakers markedly better. Like, does Trae Young at midseason make the Lakers markedly better? I don't know if there's an answer to that question.
Yeah, well, I think the answer obviously was there in the offseason, where I think continuity. The Lakers talk about how they chose continuity because of just how other teams are relying on that. But I think it was really that continuity chose them. There wasn't a market to make a deal. And even if, there were hypotheticals with Klay Thompson, DeMar DeRozan, one, I don't think either Chicago or Golden State had interest in what the Lakers had to offer. And secondly, I think the Lakers came to the conclusion that even if they had interest in that they would be a worse team, because all of a sudden it's three good players and then a lot of guys on veteran minimum deals. So I think for the Lakers, I agree with you on this, that to assume just because we saw LeBron James and Anthony Davis be reasonably healthy last season, that shouldn't mean that they have to put all the pressure again on them, because where LeBron's at in his career, even if Anthony Davis has turned some sort of a corner with improving his health, with different change in his regimen, you never truly know if that actually means they can duplicate that. But I think where the Lakers are leaning on is that even though they're not great players, they're at least good enough players that if they can stay reasonably healthy, it would take less of the burden off of them compared to last season. And, JJ's talking about 9-man rotation that he wants, and he wants guys to have a defensive buy-in, can play within a system, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. They have those players I think Gabe Vincent's going to get that nod. Jared Vanderbilt when healthy, Max Christie, I think for sure. And then it just depends, maybe Jackson Hayes and even Dalton Connect because of his shooting potential. But you add that 9-man rotation up, even on their best days, still not enough, because the rest of the Western Conference has gotten substantially better and it's that much tougher.
Yeah, I agree with that part of it for sure.